You've probably heard the term search engine optimization or SEO, but what really is SEO and how does it work and who's it for? Hi, this is Paul Hitchcock. I'm the founder and president of Giant Jacks Media. Welcome to this very special edition of Giant TV, where we are going to dive in to a giant strategy session on all things SEO. I'm joined by SEO expert and founder and CEO of Iffel International, Hema. Hema's going to break it down and reveal the eye-opening process behind SEO and explain what it is. I will be jumping in to tell you what the gasoline that fuels the engine when it comes to SEO is all about. That's content, that's your brand, and those go together with SEO. It makes it all work. So please join Hema and I for this great discussion. We're going to reveal it all. You're going to walk away with actionable tools and strategies you can use today for your own business. Let's go take a listen. Hi, everybody. This is Paul Hitchcock. I'm the founder and president of Giant Jacks Media. We're an agency that helps others to stand out, grow, and nurture their businesses. Welcome to our masterclass. I'm really excited to be here with my friend and business associate, Hema, who is the founder and CEO of Iffel International, which, Hema, it's SEO to sales. Did I get that all right?
Yes, absolutely. You have. Thank you, Paul, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm glad we got together on this because you and I are going to be talking about some very important topics for anybody that's growing and nurturing a business. Doesn't matter if it's a larger business or a solopreneur. This content that Hema and I are going to be talking about applies to you. And I want to say that we're going to start, Hema, with you. And we're digging into exactly what search engine optimization is, how it's correlated to sales, and then I'm going to be talking about the bridge to that, which makes it all work, is the content and the branding that must take place if SEO is going to work. And so I want to jump in with you, Hema, and start out and explain to our audience here, what exactly is SEO? And let's take it from there.
That's a great question, Paul. When you're searching on your phone for something, like whether it's an attorney or a doctor or a restaurant, the people who are on the first page of that search, when they pop up on your phone or on your desktop, they're winners. And search engine optimization simply means this: a search engine is like Google, Yahoo, or Bing.
Right.
It could be YouTube as well. YouTube is a search engine.
Right. Second biggest on the planet, right? Next to Google. Is that right?
It's owned by Google and it's number 2. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So SEO, which is search engine optimization, simply means getting that visibility on the first page of a search term that matters to you and your business. So for example, if your competitors are coming up first on the first page and you're not there, then you are not search engine optimized. Now,
right.
Now being on the first page too, Paul, can mean many different things to different companies. Some people pay advertising and they have a budget to do that, and they have ads. So when you go on a search and you've got products at the top,
right,
and you can click on it and it's Wayfair, and that's an ad. They're paying for an ad to do that,
which is different than SEO, right?
That's paid search engine optimization or search engine marketing in the technical term, right?
Right.
But they're still up on page 1. But some of those clicks, Paul, could be $40 a click, could be $7 a click.
A lot of money.
And a lot of people don't have deep pockets just to do that.
Right.
So when they come to us, to me, to get advice on how best to counter that, the most sustainable way to do this, to get visibility on the first page of Google, is what we call SEO. and in my world, it's called SEO to sales. And it's to really get on the first page of Google on the map page, and underneath the maps on page 1.
And when you say maps, Hema, I know we've had this discussion, but maps, for those who don't know, is when you do a search in Google, there is actually a map there, and there's stuff above the map, which I think you would confirm is the paid stuff right there above the ad.
Yes.
And then right below the map is then the non-paid stuff.
Right.
Is that right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And you can actually have ads on the map too. And that costs quite a bit of money, but there's a technique called SEO, and I'll explain why I call it SEO sales in a minute. But SEO is a technical function within the marketing field to get you ranked top 3 on maps, for example, or on page 1 underneath maps. And there's a bit of a method to that madness. And the reason I call it SEO to sales is because there's a lot of people who have said many things that you got to do this, and people are just simply overwhelmed with what needs to be done. Where do they even start? They're going to their neighbors, to their friends, and they're saying, I don't know where to start. And to me, Paul, if it doesn't correlate to leads, quality leads for your business, then whatever that is said out there to be done may not be relevant to you. So you got to find the most efficient way to get to the top on the search engine.
I agree. And I see a lot of people, I know you do too, who are spending a lot of money on wasted strategies. It's unbelievable.
Right.
They just, they've been told, inaccurate stuff. So it's a point well made.
Yeah. And so it goes back to what you do really well, right? And the analogy I give people is that if you think of Google being a really, really busy freeway with a corridor of multiple lanes and then a lot of people racing on this freeway, and if you think of a freeway being flooded with all these cars, and some go really fast, and some look pretty on the outside, and you step on the pedal and it doesn't move. Well, the website is that car that we need to race on the Google freeway. So
great analogy. It's a great analogy.
So first of all, you need the car.
Right.
And if you don't have the car that can be organically ranked, now again, I'm going to differentiate this. There are some cars that you can rank by way of advertising, and it's efficient that way. And there's some that are really efficient for organic ranking. Okay, as a SEO person, as an SEO engineer, I like the ones that are geared towards the organic ranking. Right. So as a driver, I would run a smog test. If it fails that, then we got to fix it. And if it needs to be overhauled and you need a new engine, then we will develop a new site, but based on a sales strategy.
You're talking about the website, making sure the website is up to speed and all that, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So once the website is ready, then you have to fuel it.
Right.
Just like a car needs gasoline, and fueling in the world of SEO is, yes, there's some engineering that needs to happen, but a huge part of this is content.
Content, right. And original content is what is.
Original content, yeah.
Right.
And some people say to me, why on earth do I have to write blogs or do videos? Other people have talked about it. Isn't that good enough? I'm sounding like a parrot. But the truth is that if you find a way to be different out there, there will truly be content dedicated to you.
Right.
And the structure of that content needs to connect with the emotions of users out there, people doing a search, right? And then reversing that back to what you do as a solutions provider to help that user. Right. And it cannot be done in one go. It has to be done every month.
Right.
Every single month, and you need to fuel that search engine to signal that you're alive, you're a relevant business. Number 2, that you have enough content to teach those bots about your business.
Right.
Because if you think of Google wanting an experience where when you don't know something or you want something and you go and search on there, the bots need to be informed.
Right.
That's this person right here that can actually help you. And
Right.
if you've got enough content and enough fueling that goes on and that they trust you, your authority goes higher and higher. And so now you're on page one and boom, there's a presentation from the search engine to the user based on the problems that they have and they want a solution for.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because as you're talking, I mean, I know we do a lot of work on LinkedIn, and it's the same really concept on that platform as content matters. The algorithm is picking up, is there content? Can we make you relevant, get you out there? You get buried on that platform, the website, Google, no different. A question I have, Hema, too, as you're talking, do you recommend a solopreneur have a website, not just the big businesses, but they have a website? And how does a solopreneur get involved in SEO? Is it SEO good for across the range there?
Okay, that's a really good question, Paul. So a solopreneur who is a startup tends to have, I would say that they're cash poor at that point, right?
Yeah.
Let's make that assumption anyway for this discussion. SEO is a pretty labor-intensive process. It's technical, and so if you don't understand it, dabbling in it won't really move that pedal.
Right.
You'll step on the pedal, but it's not going to move.
Right.
Now, for a solopreneur that I coach and I help do the strategy work, I often ask them, firstly, are you wanting your website to be an online brochure, or do you want it to be your VP of sales?
And
Now,
and what's the difference in your mind?
so if it's going to be an online brochure, then absolutely you can go with something very mediocre, but presents well. So
It-
you can actually send it out and maybe, you do the hunting as the owner of the company. And
Got
you're
it.
going to use this as a digital brochure to present to people that you meet.
So just a static thing on the internet brochure. Okay.
Right. Now, if they say to me, no, Hema, I really want to be visible on page one and get leads through the website, then they absolutely need a website that is designed to race on that Google freeway.
Right.
Yeah.
So and aren't there other sites, Hema, that tie into Google too? Uh, Google's the main one, YouTube, but aren't there a bunch of other sites that, all tie into Google? So the SEO is impacting a lot of different areas too?
Yeah. So are you talking about microsites?
Yeah, microsites. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, microsites are great, but if you think of putting out your architecture, now you're putting out race cars out there, right?
Yeah.
Multiple race cars. So you got one really major race car, which is your website. Now you're going to create those microsites. How are you going to fuel those microsites to bring back traffic back to your main site?
So
That's the master question, really.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the main site is what matters in the content and all of that. Okay.
Right,
All
right.
right.
And quite often people start building out a lot of microsites, but they don't fuel it.
Right. Right.
They don't fuel it with more content or ads or whatever it is to get traffic back to the main site. So now you've got a dead car.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. And then, so with the SEO, then what is the process of setting up SEO and getting it going where it's effective? Now that you've described, okay, this is what SEO is, how do you get it up and running and make sure that it works?
Okay, so how do you begin? Now, once again, we're not talking just SEO. And if you've read the book, The E-Myth, SEO technicians will be talking about keywords right off the bat. At Iffel International, we talk about SEO to sales. Why? Because we want to start with the sales strategy. So we first look at who's your ideal customer? Which customer is actually going to bring in your cash cow? Which customer is really going to lend itself well to an online marketing strategy? What's the opposite of that is referral strategies, right?
Right.
Business to business, people to people marketing. So once we understand that profile and understand what they feel, what they think, how they, if it's a doctor and looking for a patient, then you want to know what kind of pain they're in, because it's only when there's pain that you're going to get a call. Okay, so now that we understand the avatars that go with buyer personas out there,
Your target marketing, you're niching, you're figuring out the niche.
and correlating that back to a profit strategy, right?
Right.
Then we need to study the competition. And guess what? You don't have to go to a library anymore. You don't have to wait for data from some market research company to send to you. You can actually get data that gives you maps of what's going on with your competition.
Why is it important to study the competition?
Because it sets the stage for the combat. So if you go back to the Google freeway analogy, you're racing with your competitors on that freeway. It gives you a fighting chance to know, okay, they're going after this keyword, or this is what they're pumping into their ads.
Is the assumption that your competitors, these are your competitors that are doing a good job, right? You're not
Correct.
doing research on competitors that stink. These are people that are doing a good job. Okay.
These are people who are taking away your market share.
Got it. Okay.
And you want your market share back plus theirs.
Okay. I love it. I love the attitude. Seek and destroy.
Yeah. So this is marketing is based, the theory of marketing is based on a war game. And Google has just made it a lot more fun for us because the data is at our fingertips, right?
Right.
And how we apply this to a case, whether it's an attorney or a doctor or a valve manufacturer, the process is the same. You can get data you can get a lot of data today, but how do you apply this data to your case to set your competitive advantage? To set you to be different out there so that the user who's looking for a solution to what you do will say, let me give them a call.
Right.
So to get started, you need your profit strategy. So once you understand that landscape, then can you actually build your website? Then can you actually map out your content calendar? Then can you actually decide, oh my goodness, I have to spend X amount on advertising.
So the website is constructed or tweaked based on the analysis you're doing in your target niche and your competitor analysis. You can go and tweak the website to match it up. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And a lot of people make the mistake too, Paul, that they design a website and they love talking about themselves. That's all they do. They talk about what they do, what they're really good at, how people think of them, I think that's all good. But you gotta lead with the emotion of the buyer and the problems that they're having out there.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, there's too many I's. I this, I that, we this, not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I hope that explains it.
Yeah. So then you're doing all that analysis up front, and then you're launching the SEO, and then on a continuous basis, you're managing the process, right? And in some cases managing the lead flow for clients, but you're on top of it ongoing.
Yes. So once you understand, I'll give you a simple example and an analogy here. A podiatrist came to us. She's an accomplished surgeon for everything foot and ankle, a surgeon and a doctor. She came to us about, I want to say it's now 2.5 years ago. And when she came to me, she had a website and she was paying someone to do SEO, but the phone wasn't ringing.
Right. Yeah.
So we looked at her profit strategy, and I asked her. I said, "Look, Doc, I can get you visible, but what can I get you visible for so that the phone rings, you treat them, they pay you, and you make a profit?" And I thought on the outside, Paul, it was going to be like amputation, wound care, the major stuff. And she came again, she did the numbers, And by the time she's done with all the surgeries, she wasn't making that, that significant of a cash cow. So she said, get me ingrown toenails, Hema.
Get me ingrown toenails. I love it. That's pretty
Yeah.
nichey.
Yeah. So you guess what I did? I went and studied every competitor in the area that treats ingrown toenails, peeled back every facet of their website, got all their keywords, looked at all their social media intelligence, and then went and studied everything around ingrown toenails, not the technical doctor stuff, but how people feel.
Oh man, that's brilliant.
At what stage?
Yeah.
What stage does someone pick up the phone or go on a Google search, right?
Yeah.
And there's different levels of pain.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I kid you not, and the doctor will vouch for this. In 3 weeks, her phone was ringing, and they're mainly cash patients.
That's unbelievable. That's a great story. That's a great story because it's such a visual story. I'm thinking of my own toenails. I'm thinking, man, I may have to do a Google search for that.
And so she in 3 weeks got the calls coming in. In 6 months, she was cash rich. So this is going back to our financial modeling now.
Yeah.
She's cash rich, and she opens up a diabetic foot spa.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
then in COVID-19, she moves into a brand new facility, which is larger because she's growing.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and then now she's employed her second surgeon about 5 months ago, and she's looking at a new building yet again.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal story.
So
Yeah.
the moral of the story here is that I do it in all my strategy work, is that what is your ingrown toenail?
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
mean you don't do all the other things, but there needs to be some level of focus to get you going. Right?
That's a great way to put it. It just it hits home. Yeah. I completely understand. Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the most critical parts of this SEO to sales process is really when you can invest all you want in SEO or SEO to sales, but think of it this way, how crucial this is. If a lead comes in, a call comes in, and the person answering the phone has no interest in the caller, all that investment just goes poof.
Right. Right.
Right? So for me, we do mystery shopping. I'll call in, I'll pretend to be a patient or a client for a prospect, like an attorney's office. And you wouldn't believe how many times I've called in and the receptionist would answer like this: law office.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Boring, dead, like you're talking to a corpse.
They're not interested.
Yeah. Right.
And here you are investing in everything online, paying for blogs, paying for videos, paying for all of that. And if your director of first impressions isn't doing the job, then you've just lost that lead.
God, you're speaking to the choir, Hema. You know, you and I have talked a lot, but
Yeah.
it's the front end lead generation, which SEO is. If the back end isn't there, the
Right.
follow through, why do the front end?
Yes.
Doesn't
Yes.
make sense. Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
thing is that I do a lot of industrial manufacturers as well. Sales teams are my best friends, because if a web lead comes in, you've got to triage it. It's consultative selling. And if you don't
Yep.
respond within 24 hours, you're going to lose them to somebody else.
Yep.
So sales teams are also critical in all of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Larger call centers are worse because they're harder to manage, because they're outsourced perhaps, and you need to get them trained up on your brand and on your messaging, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. So connecting those dots and then converting it into whether it's a retainer or a new patient or whatever it is super critical.
Super critical. What's also super critical, would you agree, is personal branding and content?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Which, what a transition to what I want to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The CMO today that doesn't connect branding, messaging, SEO, and sales needs to be fired.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Well, can I share my screen? And
go ahead.
yeah, good time. Yeah, let me do that. Hang on a second. So yeah, at this point, I want to mention what is highly integrated with SEO, Hema, is obviously, is the personal branding and the I'll show it here, and the content. So these are the two
Mhm.
areas that I want to talk about. So on the personal brand, we all hear a lot about this personal brand. You got to have a personal brand, and like SEO, I always ask the question of people, well, do you know what personal brand is? What is it? Because that phrase is bandied about so much, and the way I describe it is this way: is your personal brand is the seedling that grows into all of your marketing, because when you're doing SEO or when you're doing any sort of lead generation campaigns, people are going to start looking at you and making judgments about you. And like you said, the follow through in the back end's got to be airtight. Well, this gets into your brand, because if you're
Yeah.
creating the activity up front and you're creating awareness, top of the sales funnel, people are becoming aware of you. Now they're looking at you. If your brand stinks, then they're going to make value judgments about you that may not be true.
Right.
If your doctor client, had a horrible brand, all the great things you're doing, people show up and they got a crappy looking brand, they may not even make the decision to get on a phone call or follow through.
Correct.
So the branding, I describe it as really where it all starts, and to elevate that brand wherever you are showing up. Obviously, website, hugely important as it relates to SEO. Platforms like LinkedIn, got to elevate your brand. If you're a
Right.
professional, we're showing up there, people are looking at that. So personal branding is where it starts. Also, part of your personal brand is, and you mentioned this in your discussion there, Hema, is your story.
Yes.
Is what's your story?
Hmm.
What are the challenges and the opportunities that you have faced in your life that allow you to help others today? And what are the problems that you are solving for others? What are the solutions you're bringing to the table? And I think you've said many times that your website needs to be solution oriented, right? Like you
Right.
said, no we's. It's how are you helping the people that you want to service? and and integrating that story throughout all the things that you do. And I want to give an example here. I just think it's so great. So a client I'm working with, an attorney,
Hmm.
he's a probate and trust attorney.
Right.
And before he became an attorney, he had a very traumatic experience with his own family. He's one of many kids, and he has a sister who was young at the time, but his parents passed away. And upon the second death of his parents, they had a small estate, the parents, but they didn't do proper estate planning. And so the parents' estate ended up in probate, which is a court administered process. Nobody wants to get involved in that, but it was a 2-year long, painful, emotionally and financially experience for the family. They Part of it was trying to get legal guardianship for one of the children, you
Yeah.
know, and it was horrible and created a lot of emotional distress. And so it was, in a large way, motivation for him to become an attorney. And he, and so he's very empathetic when dealing with his clients. He's been in their shoes if they're going through the same situation. And so that story he is woven throughout his messaging
Right.
and how he's helping people, the problems he's solving, the videos that he's shooting. And so I just thought it was a great story that he can tell to weave throughout the process. And would you agree, Hema, that story is a big important piece of SEO too?
Stories are very powerful because it connects with the emotions of the person that you can help.
Yeah.
So absolutely, you need to have stories, and that's the only way that someone can connect dots with what you do to what they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it, there's always the case that humans want to do business with other humans. They want to make a connection there, and the more you have a relatable story, the more you can build rapport and credibility, and make a connection with somebody. So I'm big on stories.
Right, right. I'm with you on that. I think, and you do them really well. I've seen some of your work, and stories are powerful.
No, thank you. Okay, I want to jump over to style now, because part of your personal brand is your style, and this is really the quality of the content. It's the fonts you're using, it's the branding that you're doing across the different platforms, the colors, the images that you're using. And again, you don't have to be a big business like Coca-Cola to be focused on the style of your branding and imaging. As a solopreneur, you have a huge opportunity today to really focus on a quality brand and making it consistent. And things like colors and fonts really matter. I mean, Hema,
Right.
colors elicit different emotions. And I can use the example of a law firm client I have, where we use a lot of kind of serious colors, grays, reds for
Right.
alerts that we do, because it's a law firm and there's serious topics we're talking about. For the media company, it's more lighthearted, the blues and the yellows and bold whites, to try to get across more of a lighthearted kind of fun environment. So as an example.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you. Yeah, you don't have to be a Coca-Cola.
No, no. And as an example where logos are part of your style, this is a logo used for the channel. I know you've seen this for a client,
Yeah.
and this is consistent. This is for a video channel, and this is for all the videos across all of the channels where those videos show up, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook groups, whatever it is. People start to become familiar with your logo and your branding, and it's like an old shoe. They recognize it, they see it, and there's a level of comfort there as they see it over and over. And I know this plays into SEO, does it not, Hema, where you have consistency of branding and imaging and messaging? Doesn't it help the cause?
No, like I said, the CMO that doesn't connect the dots between branding, messaging, SEO, and sales needs to be fired.
Right.
Your image out there. I mean, if you're going to be on page one, you've got to have the right image and the right number of reviews that goes with the image as well. And if you don't present yourself well, it's a total turn off. Absolutely.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now let's jump over to content, and I want to run through this because this is huge. As you said, content, and I used the analogy you've given me over the years, is the fuel for your engine.
Yeah.
And I just, on whatever it is, your website, LinkedIn, wherever you are, if there's
Right.
no content going on, I use the analogy too that, imagine when you're on Google and you have a website, or you're on LinkedIn, imagine you're at the largest networking event in the world, which is what Google and platforms like LinkedIn are, and you've got a booth at this large networking event, and there's a bunch of other booths, and at your booth, you got nothing. It's just a wooden plain booth, and
Mm-hmm.
all the other booths have content going on. Who do you think people are going to notice? And so if there's a lack of content, why be on these platforms? You're not doing yourself any good. You're missing the opportunity. So
Right.
content, fuel for the engine. And content also builds authority. So when you have a consistent content process going on where the focus is high value, delivering solutions, you're building authority. And like you said, Hema, couldn't agree more. It's original content, is positioning yourself as the expert rather than sharing other people's content.
Right. Right. And the truth of the matter is that if you want to differentiate yourself, you might have a different way of doing something,
Right. Right.
and like in our case, we're not just straight out technicians doing rankings of keywords.
Right.
We're connecting the dots with SEO to sales.
Mm-hmm.
And your attorney friend client that who helps people with probate and issues around trust matters, he might have an edge over someone else, a specialty area that may be better suit some of the users out there who don't need the cookie cutter legal Zoom kind of solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great point. Yeah. And I often say that content is about teaching, about being an educator, is
Yes.
putting yourself in the shoes of your prospect. What is going on in their mind? What are the challenges and the obstacles they are dealing with? Like you brought
Right.
up the great example of this doctor you're dealing with. I mean, she had a problem, and
Right.
wasn't, and you solved it. And so uh, content needs to be about teaching. But here's an issue that comes up a lot, and I see it all over the place, and you probably do too, is people are floundering when it comes to content. First of all, they're not doing content. If they are doing content, here's what 99% of the people who are doing content do is they share other people's content. They share, you know, um, magazine articles, and here's Warren Buffett's top 10 list, Richard Branson's top whatever list, and that stuff may be good content, and sharing other people's content can play a role, but an over reliance on that doesn't do anything for your brand, and I don't believe really moves the needle in a big way. So the challenge then is, how do you create content where it's not a time suck for you, especially if you're a solopreneur, you don't have 20
Right.
people behind you, pushing buttons and pulling levers. uh, how do you do it efficiently where it is your own content and doing all the
Yeah.
things it needs to do? So I'm going to show this because this is a process here where we perfected this. This is what I do for all the businesses I'm building and teach those to do that I'm working with. Here's how you can do content efficiently. We love video content. I know you do too, Hema.
Mm-hmm.
And video is king today in many ways. Like you said, YouTube is the second largest search engine on the planet. uh, Video is where it's at, and only growing. So uh, briefly, to describe this, what we do is when you shoot a video, the opportunity is to repurpose that video into multiple pieces of content.
Right.
So you shoot the video, you rip out the audio, and it immediately becomes a podcast episode. You also repurpose the video into a blog or a vlog, I call it, where you're sending out email nurture to your prospects and clients, continuing to stay in front of them with a blog. And that's
Right.
at least a couple times a month, if not more frequently. But your video then is embedded in that email.
Right.
Uh, Also, the video is shared to channels. Of course, it goes on the website to help with SEO there. It goes to channels like LinkedIn and so forth. So you're out there and your videos are getting views. We also recommend that you repurpose a video into a text post. So we have content going out, and text posting gets a lot of reach today. People, just a lot of eyeballs get on your text posts. We carve out a summary from the videos for a text post.
Right.
Video goes up into your library, which is YouTube.
Right.
Again, playing into SEO, you have videos going out on YouTube, and you're building up your library of valuable content there. And then we also carve out image quotes from the video. So pull out a quote, make it a branded image. Again, all this is branded and it's consistent across all these pieces, but you can see how one piece of content, a video, can be repurposed into a lot of different things that get eyeballs on it. You're saturating the market, you're becoming visible, you're showing up, and you're making a lot of noise. And
Right.
so and so with this, even if you're shooting 2 videos a month, for instance, when we're teaching people, we say, get us 2 videos a month, short snack size videos, high value concept that are speaking to your audience, and then repurpose it. We repurpose it into all these pieces, so you're out there and you're just standing out from all the others. So this, in a brief overview, is how you can efficiently do content and be out there and beat your competitors and make some noise. Okay, so there you have it. It's sort of a 1-2 punch here. You heard Hema talk about the importance of SEO to sales, and I focused on the branding and the content. It's a marriage made in heaven. And Hema, I just want to thank you for doing this, and I want to say thank you to everybody who is listening to this. Hope you find some nuggets from this. And Hema, I know you and I will we'll be talking again and continuing our journey forward.
No, thank you, Paul, for having me. And I look forward to sharing more in the coming months as well. There's more to share.
Absolutely. We're gonna do more education like this and keep our audience updated. So Hema, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.